Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it.
Now, that said, a concept that I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with is neuroplasticity, and the idea that your brain, just like any other organ in your body, can continue to be strengthened. And so, you see neuroplasticity when people are learning microhabits, such as maybe learning a new language or trying art or even, dancing, community. I mean, a lot of these pieces can actually help, rewire your brain. And that's actually into your later stages of life. So, while you have your genetic blueprint and then you have your gene expression, again, there are certain things that you can absolutely, do relative to your microhabits that will help drive neuroplasticity.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Thoryn Stephens. He is an AI and neuroscience expert, and Thoryn and I are going to be talking on the topic, the future of your mind, how AI, behavior, and consciousness are redefining human potential, I should say. Welcome, Thoryn.
Hi, so glad to be here and excited for the conversation, Myrna.
You're very welcome. Right. I'm excited about this conversation too. I'm always loving to learn things, and I'm going to learn right along with you guys today from Thoryn. All right. So let me ask you guys a question. There was a time when taking your health meant just one thing, living longer. What if living longer didn't mean living better? What if your mind, your clarity, your focus, your ability to feel joy, to think sharply, to remember the moments that matter, what if that's the real frontier? Because the truth is, we're not just fighting to expand our lifespan anymore. We're fighting for our mind span. And in a world where burnout is normalized, brain fog is common, and distraction is constant, what if the solution isn't working harder, but thinking smarter? My guest today is standing at the intersection of AI, neuroscience, and human behavior, helping us understand not just how to live longer, but how to perform, think, and feel better while we're here. Thoryn Stephens is the founder and CEO of Brain.One. With a background in molecular biology, data science, and global innovation, his mission is to help people think sharper, age slower, and perform at their peak. Don't you guys all want that? I want that. Right. I've already started with the brain fog thing. You know what I mean? Menopausal.
Sure.
So, Thoryn, as we get started, can you expand on the topic of mind span? Is it linked to the hidden crisis we're experiencing right now of cognitive decline, burnout, and brain fog?
I think it certainly could be. We talk a lot about lifespan and then health span as an artifact of, the last 10 to 20 years of your life. Can you really live them the most optimally? So the concept of health span has really become more prominent. And then the concept of mind span, I think, is an extension of that. My perspective on mind span is it really pulls together the concept of consciousness, plus just your, general neurological activation, fitness, optimization, and so forth.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I read Peter Attia's book on longevity, and he introduced the topic of health span. And, everybody now that's in the longevity space has been talking about you don't just want to live until you're 90, you want to live until you're 90 and maybe do marathons, right? It's extreme.
100%. Yes. That's the goal.
And yeah, you don't want to do marathons, but at least you want to walk to the bathroom, right? And right, cognitive decline is becoming a big thing. Oh my gosh. So yeah, mind span. Yes, so you want three things. You want to live longer, you want to have health span, and you want to have mind span. So that is, it's a new word for me on this show. but it's a great word to focus in on. So, so to follow up to that, what does it really mean to have a high performing brain in today's world? So maybe we can break it down to a high performing brain. I mean, a high performing brain with somebody in their 20s. And what does it mean to have a high performing brain when you're in decline? What are some of the things that you want to have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, generally, the way we approach the topic is, understanding your baseline, and that the baseline of measurement for brain is a spectrum. A lot of the historical work that's been done over the last century was through qualitative surveys, relative to the brain, but also the mind. And as the technology's progressed, we've gone from just qualitative to quantitative and EEG and QEEG and SPECT and MRI and all these different ways of measuring neurological activation activity. And so our process at Brain One, we work with humans and understand where they're at today. And that could include brain mapping as an example and understanding brain age. And so what is your current state? We also look at biologics. So along with just your EEG electrical activity, you could look at specific biomarkers within the brain, things like omega-3s, your inflammation index, EPA, and so forth. And we have blood biomarker kits that we work with there. And so you begin to understand, where are you at immediately? And then we can help put a plan together to get you where you'd like to go ultimately. And we're big fans of behavior modification and lifestyle. There was a paper that has really been, it's really gone into the public zeitgeist around dementia being preventable. And that is generally based on a paper. You could look up Lancet 2024. I'd be happy to share it with you as well. And so what that paper does is it looks at essentially 14 what we call microhabits. These are small incremental lifestyle changes. You could also call them like risk modifications, things you can do to ultimately prevent dementia based on your behavior. And so it's actually very empowering. And that's 45% of global dementia cases. So it's not going to help in all cases. You can still have a genetic predisposition. But what these modifications and these lifestyle behavioral changes can do is really help, stabilize the onset of the disease. And so we still have some, empowerment as we go down these pathways.
Wow, my next question I have here is exactly that. But before I get to that, I want to circle back on something or just an expansion of my question. So
Sure.
I've heard of the term brain mapping. I don't really
Yep.
know what it means, but um, so does your brain operate the same way as when you're a 20-year-old, if you do a brain mapping to, let's say you're a 70-year-old, which is the question that I asked. Um, so let's answer that question first. Is the brain the same thing? Like for instance, you're talking about consciousness, and one of the things I know about consciousness is its spirit. Your spirit is the same, right? Doesn't change. So does your brain change as far as before it gets into decline? I mean, tell us the difference between a 20-year-old brain and a 70-year-old brain when you do this mapping.
Yeah, so we've definitely seen in the data that there can be a loss of, think of your brain essentially as an electrical circuit. And so when you do the brain mapping, you actually see the different quadrants of the brain. It could be the neocortex, the prefrontal, what that looks like again at this moment in time. And I think absolutely as you age, you see shifts in the brain relative to, different areas of electrical activity or maybe lessening in some. So I think the answer to the question is yes, absolutely. You do see changes in the brain. Now that said, a concept that I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with is neuroplasticity, and the idea that your brain, just like any other organ in your body, can continue to be strengthened. And so, you see neuroplasticity when people are learning microhabits, such as maybe learning a new language or trying art or even, dancing, community. I mean, a lot of these pieces can actually help, rewire your brain, and that's actually into your later stages of life. So, While you have your genetic blueprint, and then you have your gene expression, again, there are certain things that you can absolutely, do relative to your microhabits that will help drive neuroplasticity.
Yes, I love that. I go out with a group of women once a week, and they're all over 60, which is where the group that I'm, the age range that I'm in. And every week, these women dance these line dances that they have to do the moves. And I'm just too lazy to learn those moves. But I know that if I learn, but I am sitting there and I'm
Yeah,
amazed because I know what it's doing for their
sure.
brain to learn those steps. And it's not
100%.
one dance. They have like 5 or 6 that they know all the moves. And I know I have
Yeah.
to get off my butt and learn them because I know what it does. There's one time I started to learn the piano because I know what neuroplasticity is and learning and rewiring the brain. Again, I didn't continue with the neuro whatever, but I read and I learn, and I'm hopefully that's doing something. But I'm glad that what we're talking about is that, yeah, if you're in the decline or you find out that you go to this brain mapping and you find that, one of the hemispheres of your brain is not working optimally, that you can probably work on some things to strengthen it and to bring it back up. So before I go on to the habits, I want to ask another question. So let's say that you go to the doctor and you or a neurologist or whoever checks your brain for dementia, and they find out that you've got early onset. Can you do anything like you just talked about um, some of these what we're the steps that we're going to talk about in a minute? Can we do anything to help stop that, reverse it, or not?
Yeah, it again depends on the progression of the disease. And, there are tests that you can do. So generally, you have what are called amyloid plaques, which is kind of like this fibrous material that propagates in the brain, and then the p-tau proteins. So there's absolutely ways you can measure that. And are there things you can do with early onset? I think I'd like to say yes. Again, you have to consult your doctor in this, but what we've definitely seen is the ability to start to stabilize at least some of the onset. But again, it just depends on the stage of the disease and really the specifics of that human relative to their genetics.
Right, right, yeah, because it is. I remember when I started having brain fog and all that stuff, and I went to my doctor and I says, maybe I'm having early onset dementia or Alzheimer's or whichever one you want to call it. I don't know the difference. And he says, no, it's genetic. You don't have it, but I know that that's not true. So I am paying no darn attention to him.
Yeah, yeah, it's a that's certainly a challenge. We hear
Yeah,
that a lot. You're not
gotcha.
alone. We hear that a lot. So
You
yeah,
really right? Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sure there's no evidence in my family of it. So but yeah, but anyway, so that's good. All right. So the question I've been alluding to, and what you've also alluded to in one of your answers, is what are some small science-backed habits that we can do every day to improve our newer performance? You said there were 14, so you want to list them?
Yeah, I can certainly pull them up. We can speak to a few. So that paper specifically is looking at microhabits that can help support dementia prevention.
Mhm.
But to answer your question first, I would say, some of the small, again, microhabits. Sleep is the foundation of everything. And like in the morning, direct sunlight, circadian regulation, actually getting direct sunlight on your face. It could be a walk. It can just be sitting on the patio, but roughly 15 minutes is one of the top of the list relative to microhabits. One you mentioned earlier with the line dancing, that's a really good example because you're combining physical activity plus the sense of community. You're doing this with other humans, and it's one of those things. And as a data scientist, I sometimes over index on the biomarkers and the biometrics, but something as soft as community, the people you surround yourself with, and having this on the calendar that you're doing once or twice a week, and whatever it is, if it's, line dancing, great, or if it's a book club, or in some ways it doesn't matter, but that out, getting out there with the community, with the music, and then also just with the activity. I mean, there's nothing better that you could do. So I think that would be another big one that sometimes is overlooked, is the power of community. Um, what else is another big one? Yeah, so generally we look at the the profile of the human, so nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, connection, and then some level of like metabolic management. And so from there, that could look at other different types of could be supplements and things like peptides, which I'm sure you're hearing a lot of. Are you hearing a lot of about peptides in your world?
Well, not in brain function, in
Yeah.
weight loss.
And in weight loss, of course. Yeah. So GLP-1, is all the rage right now. I come out of the triathlon world, so we've been doing peptides for like decades. But there
Yeah.
are peptides that are specific for your brain. And so there's Salonk, there's Samonk, there's like, a handful of them, which can help things like anxiety. They could also potentially help things like performance. So they absolutely exist. But again, we usually start with that, core foundation of things that people can do on their day to day. So we talked about a couple of the ones from the study. So that would be things like connection, TBI support. We work with NFL, Super Bowl, and
What's
NFL.
TBI?
So that's traumatic brain injury, and
Oh,
generally
okay.
from the concussion.
Getting
And these
right, right.
guys, yeah, I mean, it's actually quite sad. Some of them did really well, and some of them are, driving for Uber, and it's, really the whole spectrum. But many of them are dealing with TBI from that, that
Mhm.
concussion. And so, again, generally the first step is like understanding and doing a diagnosis and getting the brain mapping, and really, laying that foundation of where you're at, and then how ultimately you can start to put a protocol together and ultimately a plan to help support you, through these later stages of life.
That's beautiful. All right, so let me circle back with a couple of those there.
Please.
So, so yes, sleep. I mean, it comes up in almost every conversation, regardless of what I'm talking about. People are listing sleep. And yeah, I found out about sleep a long time ago, which is the main reason I have a Fitbit here that I
Right.
that I'm every single morning I'm looking at my REM, I'm looking at my deep sleep, and I'm looking at my resting heart rate, which is another
Yeah.
story. But that's what I'm looking at. And I know that sleep is very, very important. And I tell my husband all the time, he bought a Fitbit, it stopped working, and he wouldn't buy another one.
I know.
And I says, you're not understanding how important understanding if you're getting REM sleep is, because you don't want to be, because I know that in deep sleep, it cleans your brain. That's one of the things that
Yeah.
helps prevent Alzheimer's. So you need to know if you're getting deep sleep. And people just don't understand. But then the second one I want to talk about is the sun. I live in Florida and I walk every day in the sun for an hour. And I know that there was some benefit to it, and I know that walking has a lot of benefits, but I didn't understand the importance of the sun until a couple weeks ago when I listened to a YouTube video, I think it was, and the guy was talking about what happens when the sun hits your eyes and what happens when the
Yeah.
sun hits your skin.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So you want to talk about that or you want me to tell them?
I'm sure, yeah, I can fill in some details, but yeah, the whole concept again of circadian regulation, and what people don't realize is how you begin your morning is really what sets not only the foundation for your day, but also even the sleep that evening. And so in the mornings, you can have a cortisol spike, and so that could be related to, again, how much direct sunlight you're getting. And so that's a very easy, free, micro habit that all of us can pretty much do. I mean, I live in the mountains in Colorado, so we don't get direct sun until about 9 a.m. So, ideally you want to do it within, yeah, obviously it depends where you're at in the world, but yeah, we also focus on, micro habits that are, that anyone can do anywhere. And so that's a great one, along with things like cold plunging. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
like
great call out.
you're saying just 15 minutes a day, right? Yes. But I'll expand on that because what I
Sure.
learned was that your skin and your eyes have receptors for the sunlight. And when the sunlight hits your skin and your eyes, it travels down to your liver, and then the liver makes some kind of hormones, and then the hormones go to, I don't know, I think, I'm not sure, but it's a process. And the sunlight affects your hormones. And I think, right, the feel good hormones, which is why when you walk in the sun or whatever, you're feeling better because of the hormones is doing. I think one of the biggest mindset shifts happening right now is that women are finally realizing that they don't have to struggle alone when it comes to weight loss and wellness. For years, many of us blamed ourselves. We thought we lacked discipline, motivation, or willpower. But the truth is, our bodies are complex, and sometimes we need real medical support to help us reach our goals. That's why I'm excited to share today's sponsor, Hers. Hers connect women with licensed healthcare providers online to create personalized weight loss treatment plans that fit your needs and lifestyle. So, if you ever felt stuck trying to lose weight, you're not alone. Weight Loss by Hers is designed to support you in reaching your goals. And Hers now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. And what I really love is the convenience. Everything is done online, from the consultation to ongoing support, making it easier to prioritize your health without adding more stress to your life. If you've ever been thinking about taking the next step in your wellness journey, visit forhers.com/transform to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/transform. forhers.com/transform. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com. So yeah, now that I am conscious of that, I look up at the sun. I get that light on my eyes, even though I'm wearing sunglasses. But so yeah, so I'm doing, and you know what? Thank you for highlighting the line dancing. I knew it, but a lot of times people know things and they don't do it. Like people smoke even though they know they shouldn't, or
Yep.
people, all the things drink even they know they shouldn't, you know. And I know that I'm sitting there every week and I should learn those steps, but I don't. So I'm gonna learn the steps. So
Never,
right.
never too late though. Whenever it calls to you, make it happen. That's in all of these things, it's better to start, as soon as you can, but
Yes,
ultimately whenever you're ready. So
yes, yes,
that's the
yes,
hardest
yes.
part in all this is the human behavior. We build these amazing AI algorithms that can personalize the healthcare protocols based on adaptive AI. And that's really cool. But the challenging part is to get the human to do the things, to get up in the morning and get the direct sunlight.
I like that. The human don't want to do the thing.
Oh no, that's by far the hardest part is changing the human behavior. The technology in a lot of ways is the easiest. And so, yeah, so it's really showing them the value and the reward of doing the thing, which they want to be doing anyway. People want to get better sleep, but again, it's almost like counterintuitive, like your sleep starts in the morning. So yeah, it's training the brain, training the mind, to be this, have this be part of your daily routine in what we call a protocol.
Protocol. Amazing. All right. So you're always, the questions that I have here, you're always kind of like introducing it in the last one. So that's great. So you also talk about AI and the future of brain health. Are we moving towards a world where AI knows our brains better than we do? What is the connection there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Does the AI know our brains better? Well, again, you have to differentiate the brain from the mind. So the brain again is an organ. I think the AI could map out, the electrical activity of the brain and know your brain quite well. It doesn't necessarily know who you are in your mind. So I think, delineating that point is important. One of our chief scientists is a amazing human named Dr. Galen Buckwalter. And Galen had a tragic accident. He was 17, jumped off a bridge and hit a rock. And so he's in a wheelchair. But he qualified for a clinical trial at Caltech where they put 6 neural implants. These are chips on his brain, and these are called brain-computer interfaces. It's an 8x8 chip. Looks like just almost a normal chip out of your phone. And what that's doing is allowing him to measure the different areas within his brain. So he has one in the prefrontal cortex, one of the first humans in the world, 5 on the neocortex, and it's allowing them to basically map his brain with much higher resolution than you would get from something like an EEG or even a QEEG. So from that perspective, we are really we're the generation where we're seeing this intersection of biology and machines and the technology. And in Galen's case, he's doing this to help support people who have spinal cord injuries and, ultimately brain injuries. And it's part of a clinical trial to help, really advance the science in this area. So it's pretty amazing. But I've been with him at Caltech and seen, some of these studies, and it's measuring a single neuron firing, which we've never had that resolution. And so it's very exciting. And then he can basically use his brain, and they screw on these things that are called PEDs and then connect his brain to the internet, and he can control a robotic arm, as an example. So
Wow.
yeah, so answer your question, but again, where it's really truly growing is this concept of brain BCI, brain computer interfaces. One of the most popular examples of companies would be Neuralink. This is one of Elon's companies, and that's exactly what they're focused on, are what are called invasive BCIs, because they're actually putting these chips on the brain. But then there's non-invasive, where it could just be a headband or almost like a cap, where you can also measure your brain activity, but maybe not have the excitation.
All right. So what's the benefit of that? I was listening to hear you say that it's going to help him walk, which is, I've watched like 4 Superman documentaries. And he wasn't going with the brain implants. He was going with the stem cell things. But
Yeah.
does your specific human want to walk? Is that going to help him, or
It
it's not
probably
going
will not
to?
help him, unfortunately, in
Okay.
his lifetime. But it could help
Mm,
future humans, future generations. So,
mm,
sometimes science is a selfless act. But it's
mm.
laying that foundation, ultimately
Okay.
to help people so someday they could absolutely walk. So,
Well, that's beautiful. That's
yeah,
beautiful. I like that. Not in his lifetime, but it's coming. Wow. I
it's
love that.
coming.
So they're
Yeah.
using him as a way to research how to make it happen. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of a clinical trial.
Wow.
So he's essentially doing research with the mapping, and so AI is aggregating all that data and then driving like the action or the insights around it. So very much intertwined. And so those are called brain computer interfaces. There's also essentially spinal cord interfaces as well that are going into the spine. So it's a very exciting area of science, especially for people who, maybe, in a wheelchair. So it could offer them, the ability to walk someday.
Wow. I love that. I love that. So that's what AI is doing, huh? Yes. The medical field the medical field is one of the, you know, every day there's people talking about what AI can do for your business as far as, helping you sell things and helping run your social media and helping you as a podcaster. It helps me a lot with all the things that I do in production. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, we are forgetting that AI is doing really great in the medical community, what it's doing there.
Oh
Right.
yeah, 100%. I mean, we see that on the daily. Humans are now taking all their medical data and putting it into ChatGPT, which is not something I would necessarily recommend, but it's happening. And it's happening because, they're not getting what they need from their doctors. And in
Right.
some cases, we go back to some of the pillars we talked about earlier around nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress. Um, Most doctors are not taught anything about nutrition. And I'm a big believer that medicine is, food is a medicine, and nutrition is the foundation of everything in many ways, just like sleep, I mean, they're of equal importance. So that's a bit of a challenge, that we're seeing within the AI. And then your privacy also goes out the window, let alone some of the more advanced things like genetics and genomics, or what's called epigenetics. We're getting all this data. The question is, what do we do with it? So,
Yeah, I'm chuckling to myself about you said about people putting their information in ChatGPT. You know, um, I take one of the GLP ones, Manjaro,
Sure.
And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, because it's not new information, is that the GLP-1s raise your heart rate about 10 points, and then it raises, and then it affects your heart rate variability, has it down.
Yep.
So I knew this, and I've been seeing it with my data because it comes in my Fitbit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, again, it's things that humans know, but they don't do
Sure.
until all of a sudden I was introduced to this new guy, Brian Johnson, who has spent millions of dollars on himself for longevity. And one of the first things he said is that I finish eating at 12 o'clock because I want my resting heart rate to go down to the 40s. Because
Yeah.
if my resting heart rate is in the 40s, then I sleep better. So now I'm looking at mine that's in the 80s, and I says, no, that's a stop.
Well, and yes. So Brian's a very interesting human, and I think
Hang
is
on, hang on, let me
doing
finish the story.
Oh,
So
okay,
I
okay.
went to ChatGPT and I said, put my stuff in ChatGPT. No, it shouldn't raise it 10. It should only raise it 2 and whatever. And I says, no, this is my data. I stopped taking that GLP-1 and my think tank. It's 10 points in 1 week. So Dr. Attia was right. So now I go to my doctor and I bring him the data from ChatGPT, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is what ChatGPT says.
How'd that go?
Pretty badly, because now I'm telling the doctor what to do. I kept
Yeah.
saying sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, you touch on a bunch of things. I mean, one is, again, most doctors don't necessarily know HRV as a metric.
Right.
I mean, some, but not. I mean, again, wearables, like I use all of them. I'm wearing a Garmin. I sleep with a Whoop. I've got an Aura ring. We look at, we do time series to see which of them are accurate. But like most doctors are not necessarily taught what that means, like, let alone, okay, so my HRV when I'm like in top condition is 100, like, which is like through the roof. I know, relative, right? But I also know amazing athletes and theirs is like 25, so it's all relative to the human, the genetics, lifestyle, all of these things. So you don't, you want to be careful comparing it. But your story is very interesting because if you have that baseline of data, pre GLP and then post, like, I mean, that's why we're doing the work that we're doing, is we can start to really understand and pinpoint, those types of increases or decreases, depending. But I'm just curious, what was your HRV decrease then, pre and post? Do you have an idea?
I was around 65,
Okay.
and then I went to 86. And
Oh,
every week my Fitbit would say, oh, your resting heart rate went up 3 points and all that.
oh God.
So as soon as I stopped it, it
Yeah.
dropped 10 points and went back to
Yeah.
75. So my doctor's saying, well, 75 to 86 is not that much, but I know that it was at 65, 68
Yeah.
before that. So, but anyway, yes.
Well, it could be. I mean, again, if you have, that's what's so empowering about this now, is you have the data and you can look at those trends and you look at your averages and you're like, if it jumps 20%, like, yeah, that's significant, that's not nothing. And that's really helpful information to have. So, yeah. And again, the doctor doesn't, they've never really studied these types of metrics. So I'm
No,
sure he
I
could.
was very surprised that he sat there quietly and just listened to me. Then he said to me, show me what ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT says, well, he should take these labs. And I kept him take. And he says, well, all right, yes, we're doing this lab already. We're doing that. But I felt pretty badly, to be quite honest, because you shouldn't be going into a doctor's office and telling them what to do.
Well, again, though, like, you're not alone here. Like, we're hearing this from so many of our users. We actually are developing a solution around this where people can confidentially store their lab data, because you don't really have a place to put that, maybe outside of an EHR. So that's something that we're actively thinking about. And then the ability to analyze it. And again, most of these doctors, like, they didn't study this in medical school. They didn't really study genetics either, let alone nutrition. Like, these are all the pillars, let alone the more advanced things like epigenetics and, the whole host of gene expression. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. I love that about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is my friend.
I mean, you're not alone,
He's everybody's
again.
friend.
Yeah. I
He or
mean,
she, whatever you want to call it.
well, there is a push, to not enforce, but ensure that, clinicians have this data at their fingertips, because they're not going to be able to interpret, this massive amount of genomic data, as an example. So, I think we're going to start to see some pretty large shifts here.
Okay. Awesome. 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 All right. So now let's talk about women. You talk about the female brain revolution. What are some of the new discoveries that are coming about for preventing brain fog and dementia in women? Now, like I mentioned to you before that I had brain fog and it's, hormonal because of menopause and I think there's a study that says that I don't know. But I think that I hear that women get dementia more than men. Is that true? Is that why we're doing the female brain revolution and not the male? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that is true, actually. Let me look that up because I don't want to
I don't know.
missquote.
I thought
Yeah.
I saw that, but I don't know.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would say in general, where we're seeing a lot of interest is within health protocols for women, period. So what does that look like? So again, women who are undergoing perimenopause, let alone menopause, and I gave a talk recently. This woman ran up to me afterwards. She's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for speaking about this. I'm going through, essentially perimenopause now." And she was like 30, 35. And
Wow.
so we've seen this acceleration, and we believe it's, basically, women are getting their cycles earlier, entering perimenopause earlier. So it's, like this acceleration that's pretty prevalent in the data. And further, the questions around why, what's happening in endocrine disruption. So just the, disruption of the hormonal cycles. And then what does that look like on a single molecule basis? And it's pretty terrifying, to say the least. I think traditionally there's not been a lot of research here, in particular with women, and especially in these areas. And the questions that I have is like, why does nearly everyone I know, every woman I know, she's dealing with autoimmune disorder or thyroid issues, and it's so prevalent. So we think about protocols to help support women in these different parts of their journey, and avoiding certain things like fragrances, as an example, which I think we're starting to see more and more. We grew up with all these fragrances. Everything had a scent, from your dishwasher detergent to your laundry detergent to your, dryer sheets and all of that. And I think there's some pretty negative consequences, in general. And so we're starting to see a lot more research around that, but in particular within women. And yeah, we get hit up constantly with, exactly as you said, women who are dealing with brain fog, especially as they're progressing and going through perimenopause and menopause. So, so some of the types of protocols that we work on then are things that are lifestyle based, and of course, hormonal based, and working with your doctor as well is always recommended.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good. Yes. Wow, 35 and menopause, premenopausal. Wow.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Women are getting their cycles earlier, preteen. And so
preteen.
that can
Yeah,
be, yes, there's a whole bunch of issues for the current woman that wasn't there for our ancestors. So I'm glad that they're helping us with those endocrine issues, as you call them.
yeah.
Amazing. All
What do
right.
you think about the fragrance piece? I'm just curious. Does that resonate with you?
Well, yes, I should have circled back with that. No, I haven't found or noticed anything because I'm a fragrance person.
Yeah,
I spray my body
yeah,
all the time. I have fragrance in my soap, I have fragrance in
sure.
everything. But I actually did hear about the room sprays, how
Mhm.
dangerous it is.
Yeah,
And I don't use the room sprays. I have a plug-in. I don't know
yeah.
if that's a difference, but I wasn't sure that fragrances were a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just be curious your thoughts on it, and yeah, maybe take a look at the research, and yeah, love to.
Yeah, all right. I'll look into that. That's great. Fragrances are some of my problems. I'll look into that. All right. So, you also talk about psychedelics and conscious exploration. And I've had a couple of interviews on psychedelics, one being the Amarita.
Mascara.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And I even bought some for my husband.
Oh, really? Well, be careful with that one. They're beautiful, but they can be a bit problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was impressed by what he said, what they can do, and whatever. So, what kind of psychedelics are you talking about? And and conscious exploration. You want to talk about that?
Sure, sure. Yeah, psychedelics have been an integral part of my upbringing. When I was 15, I was in the upper Amazon of Ecuador, and I drank a plant medicine there called wachuma, and that was kind of my foray into consciousness and plant medicines. And so I very much look at them as medicines. Um, I think they can be, powerful gateways and catalysts within consciousness. You used to have to, pray for your entire life or sit in a cave and meditate. And now through these types of substances, you can accelerate that and, instantly have these experiences, which I think is really beautiful. It also should be done with caution, generally with a practitioner of some kind, even if it's a friend, in a very safe space. I live in Colorado, so now actually psilocybin mushrooms are legal or decriminalized,
Mm,
basically. So,
yeah.
I mean, they're all over. You can find them, almost at the gas station at this stage.
Really? Wow.
Well, not quite, but but I mean, they're everywhere, and I think it's
It's like
generally positive.
weed in Toronto. You buy it at the drugstore.
Yeah, I mean exactly. It's basically coming. It's only a matter of time. Um, there was just an order, executive order that was just passed around iboga, and iboga is a plant medicine with the Bwiti people in Gabon, and they've been using this plant medicine for I don't know, hundreds if not thousands of years, and actually now that was just again pushed through to help people with advanced, PTSD and potentially depression, veterans. And so I think these are all very helpful tools, but, when handled in a conscientious environment relative to the administration.
Yeah, that's good. I was introduced to the ayahuasca experience by reading. I'm a reader, so
Okay.
I get my
Sure.
education from reading. I get my education from talking to experts like you in the show. And yeah, Will Smith talked about his ayahuasca experience. I think he went 14 times.
Okay. Pretty good. Sure.
And he explained it, and yeah, it's the same kind of consciousness because the first time he experienced it, it was so amazing to him he couldn't get enough of it. So he kept
Yeah.
going back.
We certainly hear that. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think it's ayahuasca is not for everyone, but it can be very helpful for some, just like all psychedelics. Certain people should not necessarily be on psychedelics if you're on MAOI inhibitors, bipolar. I mean, there's certain conditions where you can have even contraindications, but yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I wasn't aware Will Smith was a fan.
Yeah,
I've
no,
sat,
yeah.
yeah, I've sat many times
Details
and
in
it
his
was
book.
okay. That's amazing. Yeah, I think these can be very, very helpful tools. Psilocybin, as we actually started, the discussion around the concept of neuroplasticity. I mean, there's some really compelling evidence around psilocybin and psychedelic mushrooms, essentially helping, open new neural pathways. So, a lot of this stuff starts to coalesce.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bought the Emerita mushrooms for my husband is because this guy talked about how it's the only thing that affects the gamma or something, and it changes it or helps it or something like that. So I thought that that was a good reason. Um,
Now, have you tried them yet?
he's tried them. I don't think he's seen any difference because he still have half of the ones that I bought him. He you've got to be careful when you take them because he goes to work and
Yeah.
you don't want to be drug tested or something, so he rarely takes them, so obviously it didn't work because I don't know, maybe you have to take them every day or what, but he only took a
Well,
couple, so I don't think you
I
notice
mean,
any difference.
so Amanita muscaria has been used, throughout millennia within humans. These are the bright red mushrooms with the white
Yeah,
flakes for
right.
the listeners. Again, though, you might want to consider trying psilocybin with him. Amanita can be a bit harder ultimately on the gut,
Mm,
and even a bit unpleasant. So psilocybin, might be another
the
option.
better one. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
little bit,
I'll
little bit
try
easier.
that one out.
That's awesome.
All right, so now let's talk about your company, Brand One. So, can you tell her, I know that you're CEO and founder, so talk about your company,
Sure.
talk about how listeners can connect with you after this conversation, your website, social media handles, and any
Yeah.
kind of initiatives that you want to share about Brand One.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're a team of scientists, neuroscientists, neurobiologists. We believe that the future of human health is the concept of a health protocol that people can ultimately get healthier more efficiently when they follow a structured framework. And this came to me when I was training for triathlon. So I do all the way up to Ironmans, but in triathlon, you're following a protocol, and the protocol are the activities you're doing, so swim, bike, run. But then when you're doing these longer distances, you're optimizing your nutrition in real time. So your carbohydrates, your electrolytes, your hydration, protein to a degree. And if any one of those variables gets off, you may not finish the race. And so I was just focusing on the vision for Brain One, and we were training, and ultimately that's when the kind of the product came together. And so the product is focused on the idea that you can come in and maybe you're looking for a sleep protocol. So you can put in sleep protocol, and you can connect your wearable, you can connect your Fitbit if you'd like, and then it will give you a personalized sleep protocol based on your initial assessment, based on your biometric data, and it has it in a tracker immediately available. So you have something that you can follow with little nudges and essentially a plan to help you have better sleep, or as we discussed earlier, maybe prevent dementia, or maybe just operate at a higher peak performance. And so that's the general gist of it. And then we have different ways of measuring the brain, ranging from EEG to, again, like blood kit biomarkers you can do at home, all the way up to, let's say, like SPEC and MRI and some of these more advanced resolution methodologies. And then a place where you can house all that information and data and then just continually optimize your health. And so part of that is the concept of adaptive AI, and that your protocol changes every week based on your data and based on what you like, what you don't like, and it can give you additional recommendations, such as line dancing with your friends. So, but these small, behavioral changes that you can follow, that's not overwhelming, that help people ultimately on their journey.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. And what's your website? And I'm assuming that people all over the country can
Yeah. We're just we've been in a private beta, so we're going to be opening this up in June, and the website is brain.one, and we're going to be giving away an initiative of giving away 1 million dementia protocols for free. So there's no cost. You can come in and use the basis of the service and have, again, a dementia prevention protocol. And then we have more advanced AI and more advanced women's health protocols and so forth. But so this summer we'll be opening up the native app, and we're very excited.
Wow. So it's in the form of an app?
It's an app. It also can be used on your home computer, and then we're moving away from apps also and using SMS and some other tools. But that's the concept, is that you have just a daily routine, and you can follow it and track it through the app, with your wearable data, add your blood biomarker data. We're testing a new technology. You can do a face scan, and actually through the face, we can measure hypertension within like 5% of accuracy relative to like a blood, old school blood pump from your arm, that we can now get essentially through just a face scan. Also testing other biometrics like voice and understanding people's stress levels and anxiety through voice. So
wow, I'm on this.
It's very exciting.
I want one of those free $1 million protocols.
We're happy to share.
Not $1 million. One of the 3 million protocols that you're giving out.
It's free for you. No, 100%. But really appreciate the work you're doing. Yeah.
Yes. I love it. I love it. All right. So I'm assuming that you're on Brain One everywhere else, Instagram, everything.
So brain.one, and then our Instagram is brain fitness one. And my personal is Rage Area, ARAGEAREA. And but if they come to the brain.one website, they can mention your name, and we'll put them to the front of the wait list, and we'll be opening this up in June.
Okay. Yes. All right. So this episode will probably air in June, as I mentioned to you.
Awesome.
I'm gonna bump you up.
Perfect.
So that'll be perfect. Awesome. I love that. Okay. So we spend so much time as we close out. I want to talk about, we spend so much time in our lives chasing more time. More years, more milestones, more moments. But today's conversation reminds us that it's not just about how long we live, it's about how well we think, how deeply we feel, how fully we show up in the time that we're given. And your mind is not just something to neglect until it breaks. It's something to train, to protect, to nurture every single day, because a sharper mind doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you live. So maybe the real question isn't how long do I have, but how well am I living right now? So yes, Thoryn talk about wearables and a protocol and some ways in order to track things and to do things that you're supposed to do so that you can live well. All right. So, if this episode resonated with you, connect with Thoryn on his website. I will link out to it on the show page, which is myhelps.us. And you heard him talk about the free protocols that he's given out, which will help you with checking out if you're on the path to dementia, which is very, very important, right? So I'll also link out to that, link out to his social media, so that you can keep on following and getting this data and this information. So, Thoryn, as we wrap up, any last words of encouragement to our listeners?
Sure. I will, end with the microhabit we actually mentioned earlier, but just the power of connection and, the power of community and how that important that is in just neurological optimization throughout all stages of your life. And, the power of your words and bringing together this community. So really awesome conversation and appreciate it.
Yeah. I know. I loved it. Yes, I loved our conversation. So, which is good, and I'm glad I had some input on certain things on it. Yes. So yeah, I heard about the power of connection. Again, I get input from so many places. Not anyone that I spoke to on the show, but I think I was listening to somebody talk about it. And he was saying that the number one longevity tool was connection, friends, loved ones, not just what we get on Facebook, but real connection. So I'm
Human
glad
connection.
that you mentioned that's one of your first things too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
One at a top. Absolutely agreed. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and I hope that there were some nuggets and some takeaways that you can take with you about about your brain, about cognitive decline, how to all the things that Thoryn and I talked about. And if you missed something, just go listen to it again. So I want to leave you guys with the words of encouragement. I call my tribe the Transformers tribe. So I want to leave you with the catchphrase that if you change your brain, you can change your life. Thoryn, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, this insightful conversation. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. And of course, I learned a few things along the way. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.
Thank you.